welcome back. Today I'm doing a review on a YA series called Magic or Madness, and it's a trilogy, so it's 3 books, and it's by Justine. I won't even attempt butchering her surname, it's up there, you can read it. It's set in Australia, and a lot of books I've been reading lately actually are set in Australia. And some of them you wouldn't even notice it's in Australia. I mean, the setting doesn't really play a role. But in this series, I think it really does, because there's even a glossary at the end, Australian terms, and yeah, Australia does play a big role. But then it's also set in America sometimes, so there's a bit of American kind of setting in there too. But it's initially I thought it was just from one person's point of view. The main girl, Reason, her name's Reason, who discovers this like magical world, but it's from 3 people's point of view, 3 young people who are, you know, all have magical powers, and which, you know, I'm kind of used to authors now, like the majority of authors are writing books from multiple points of view, and if it's 2 people I can accept that now. I'm okay with that. Usually before I hated it, but now if it's 2 people I'm okay. More than 2 people I'm not crazy about, and there was 3 in this one. I mean, it wasn't the worst book I've read with multiple characters narrating. It wasn't, but that's just something to know anyway. So there's 3 people narrating, and Reason has been living with her mother in the Australian kind of outback or bush for her whole life, and she's been on the run from her grandmother. And then at the beginning of the series, they're found, and her mother is put into some form of mental institution, and she goes to live with her grandmother, and she's been growing up knowing her grandmother is evil, thinking magic is real, and she's a witch and she's horrible and everything. And then she discovers that magic actually is real, and there's just this tough choice when you have magical powers. You either don't use magic and eventually you'll go crazy or insane, your mental stability will just slowly unravel, or you use magic, but the more you use magic, the more likely you'll die. So if you use lots and lots of magic, you're going to die really young. Like if you make it into your 30s, you're lucky even. And so you should try and make that balance. So you have to use a little bit of magic so you don't go crazy, but you can't use too much or else you'll die. So that's kind of like the big tough choice in this series. And but besides that, I don't think there's much magic in this series. There's not. There's like a magic door, and that's about it. It's a little bit repetitive after a while as well over the 3 books. Like, it's kind of like back and forth the same thing. And as well, this really strange element comes into the series end of the 2nd book. No more, actually the 3rd book. And I wish I was more articulate and could formulate a better word to describe this feeling or situation. It's just weird, just some weird thing comes into it in the 3rd book, and that put me off. So I liked the series at the beginning, and slowly I kind of got a little bit bored of it. It's very underwhelming, I have to say, and everything to do with the characters is very surface based. Like, I don't get a big insight into the characters, and everything is presented to you. Nothing is inferred, you know, that type of way. And you can't really, I don't know, you can't really get a big feel for the characters. I didn't feel any connection, or like I didn't care enough about the characters. I didn't really care what happened to them. Like, the author didn't instill in me this, you know, real connection or passion for characters, which, you know, certain series do, and that's great. I just didn't feel that in this series. I didn't root for them much, and there wasn't good relationships in the series either. So I mean, there are a few negatives to the series, but I did enjoy reading it at times, and I read all the 3 of them. I don't think it's a series I'd reread. It's very kind of, the characters are very young, kind of 2 out of the 3 are very young, and you get that young feel from them. I don't know how to describe this series. It's okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay, and it's readable, and it's actually easy to read, and it's nice to read something in Australia. A lot of the Australian, like as I said, it's like a glossary at the end, Australian slang and terms a lot of people might know. And actually, like comparing to the American slang and phrases, the Irish slang is very similar to the Australian one. Like we use footpath and maths and chips and biscuits and, you know, to get on with someone, and dodgy. We use all those words. So I was okay with the majority of them. But I do think they also kind of threw in too many Australian terms. Like I felt like sometimes just for the sake of it, just say, oh yeah, we're in Australia. But yeah, besides that, I mean, it was a fine series. Would I recommend it? I'm not sure. I mean, if you like the sound of the story, give it a go. But it's not, you're not missing out on much if you don't read it. Okay, so that's my spoiler-free review. And now I'm going to do a spoiler review. So if you haven't read the series before, I suggest you switch off now. Okay, so it felt like I was reading Narnia or something, you know, like when they go through the magic door and then she's in like a snowy filled place, and then you find out it's actually just New York. I liked the first book, and then the second and third were kind of got a little bit repetitive because it was constantly back and forth to New York, and nothing serious was happening, like except for the Jason Blake thing. Nothing really serious was happening, and the weird thing that came into the third book was with that old man ancestor of Reasons, who was like an alien, and then Reason started turning into like this alien type creature. That was the weird thing. That turned me off a little bit. And Tom was sweet and everything, but you could kind of cut out his part. Yeah, and the whole pregnancy thing, it was kind of like, that was a fine part of the story, and it was exciting and interesting, but it just kind of glossed over. Like it wasn't really a big deal. No one thought it was a big deal. Reason didn't really think it was a big deal. I'm glad we got the very kind of end, that epilogue type scene where, you know, she had the baby, and they called it magic, like the worst thing ever. And yeah, and then Tom realizes that this baby has powers. So it's kind of like, ooh, a big deal ending. One of the big grievances I have in this series of these books was with JT thinking that any person who spoke in a different way to her or to Americans was wrong. Anything that wasn't her normal English, it was wrong and weird, and she's speaking wrong. No, it wasn't. It was just a different way of speaking. Oh, that's something that really bothers me. This series, it was okay. I did enjoy it at the beginning, but it slowly went a little bit downhill, and you know, it's not too special, but it's okay. It's readable, and I'd love to know what you think about it. And thank you very much for watching my review today, and I hope you tune in next time.